Very happy to be here. Great to see so many of you and also so many young people, because obviously young people are the future. We are the past, maybe in a way. I hope not. But I'm originally from Germany. Don't hold it against me. I lived in America for 17 years, so if I speak too quickly, just wave, okay? I'm on Twitter, G. Leonhard. If you're Twittering, you can follow me there. We will publish the presentation sometime today on my website, mediafuturist.com, and of course on the ICMA online site as well, as quickly as possible, and on Twitter. So if you follow me on Twitter, you can download the PDF directly from there. So briefly about what I do. The Futures Agency is a company based in Switzerland and also in San Francisco. And what we do is we help companies understand the future, not predict the future, not preclude what happens in 5 years, but to have foresight, what we call foresight, about where the markets are going. We're doing this for many companies around the world. This is our job. This is the job that really everybody should have, which is to just listen. Right? Many cases, if you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. If you listen to your kids, you know where things are going. Right? So that's basically our job. We work for lots of companies in technology, media, entertainment, mobile phones, telecom companies, marketing agencies, and so on, to help sort of get a grab on the future. You may have seen this slide. Right? The newspaper industry, basically the decline of what's happening. This is a US information. Obviously, people are getting news from the internet rather than from the newspaper or even from television. Basically, I'm sure you know this, disruption is everywhere. Right? And we're only at the beginning. Because the internet used to be all about the computer, cables. Now the internet is on the mobile. And that makes a huge difference in terms of where things are going. Look at the music industry. Right? Successful management of transition process, right? 65% decline in the US on the music industry. Right? Call that disruption. That's much worse than the newspapers. But still today, the music industry is still insisting on the old model of buying a copy, one copy at a time, right? So dealing with transition is a very difficult process, and it will require understanding that we are only at the tip of the iceberg. I mean this in a positive way, not to scare you, right? We're only at the beginning of the disruption because, as I was saying, now the internet is moving to the mobile. That means 4.2 billion people connected to the internet in the next couple of years. People in India, Russia, China, Brazil, Indonesia will not enter the internet on a computer. Right? They'll use mobile devices. So that's about 90%, as Google CEO Eric Schmidt has said, 90% of internet access will be on the mobile. So what does that mean for commerce? I mean, I think it means a lot in terms of the changes. So this is a colleague of mine in Australia, Ross Dawson, has come up with a newspaper extinction timeline. So, for example, he's saying in the US in 2017, newspapers will be extinct. Right? I'm not sure I agree on the timeline or even on the prediction, right? But this is still pretty far away. 7 years for the transition is not such a bad time. But for example, if you live in Hungary, it's 2032. So you're still very lucky there if you live in Hungary, I suppose. But I'm not sure how true that is. But of course, we are looking at extinction, I think, in many ways. It's not such a black or white question. It can probably also be both. This is a poster from Japan that says that in the subway, you're not allowed to read the newspaper. Right? It says, leave it at home. Right? And why is this? Because there's no room in the subway to read a paper. You're supposed to look on your mobile like this, right? Rather than unfold the newspaper like they do in Germany or in London. Right? So leave the newspaper at home. But I'm sure you're aware of this, that technology disruption is quick. Social change takes longer. Business change takes even longer. And political change, as we can see yesterday in the US, takes even longer. Right? So disruption has different layers: technology, business, culture, society. But you know what this is, right? The printing press, Gutenberg, what was it, 1771 or whatever? I'm not sure I get this number right. But basically, I think what we're seeing, mobile and broadband and social connectivity, social media and video, brings us a disruption similar to the printing press. So that's something we have to deal with. It's a huge opportunity, I think. At the same time, you've seen all these stats classifieds are moving online. People are connecting on the web. People are using the mobile to search and browse. I mean, these developments are not new. But video is already about 85% of the entire web traffic is supposed to be next year just entirely based on video. People love video. So if you're not into video, that's the first step that you should be doing, right? Get into video advertising, video clips, video promotions, product demos, all that stuff that people really like. And then we see with social networks clearly all of the sites that are social and participatory and interactive, YouTube, Wikipedia, Facebook, Twitter, are all exploding, while traditional sites are declining. Right? Anything that's participatory, that involves the user, is increasing. Everything else is declining. That's really not new, because after all, that's the nature of the internet, right? We go there to communicate. Right? So that's not a new development, but clearly, social networks right now, Facebook has 523 million users, 10.6 billion minutes spent a day on Facebook. Right, so if you're not using Facebook to aggregate your users, then you're missing a huge platform. This is what it used to be 10 years ago. Big companies, big media, big broadcasters, big government, maybe in some places. Now we're going towards this. Right? We're going towards radical consumer empowerment. And as consumers, we love this. Right? We love TripAdvisor. We love Kayak.com. We love Craigslist. We love all these things that are empowering us. We like this. As a business, that's actually pretty hard. Because as a business, we're on the other side of the receiving end. Right? But of course, it's not either black or white. It's really both. But I would say that the consumers, we have to get rid of the word consumer. We have to leave the word in the past. These are the people formerly known as consumers. They're now participants. All in different ways, not all in the same way, but they're no longer really consumers. I used to be in the music business. I was a musician and producer for a long time, and then I went into digital music, so this is a very familiar phenomenon for me. But basically, selling today means the first thing you do is you build fans before you build customers. I mean, look at eBay, Craigslist, all the other big examples. People are fans of those sites. Right? The most successful companies have fans. They have people who love the company. Right? They're attracted. They're magnets. So I think what we can learn from the current things on the internet, that we have to have fans before we have customers. And that thought is a new thought, right? Because we're basically saying, oh, yeah, now I have to make friends with my customers. Who wants to be friends with their customers? You're just supposed to buy. Right? I mean, basically, music industry offers a great example here, is that around the world, the music industry is the most hated industry in the world. Right? And why is this? Because they sue their own customers, right? And they don't have a good offering. So bad development there, but I think we have to look in this direction. Fan before customer. Facebook, of course, again, is a fantastic example. Mark Zuckerberg, I'm sure you've seen the movie, which wasn't at all like Facebook, but interesting movie anyway. He says he has the most powerful distribution mechanism that has been generated in a generation. He calls Facebook a distribution mechanism. Are any of you running ads on Facebook? Anybody? Yeah. Amazing tool. Cheaper, more efficient, right? More targeted. Absolutely amazing thing to try out. Not to promote Facebook here, but as a study, it's amazing what will happen there. I think Facebook will be bigger than Google in the next couple of years in terms of advertising, audience, and so on. So it's going to really get spinning. And here's a great summary from Hugh McLeod, who's a cartoonist. He says, engage or die. I don't want to put it to you quite as drastically, but I think if your company isn't socially connected and engaged with the customers, it's going to be very difficult. Any company that does not engage, whether you're a bank, insurance company, record label, TV station, or in the classified markets, you have to engage with the consumer. So social media can be rather confusing. In fact, this cartoon says, Twitter makes me like people I've never met, and Facebook makes me hate people I know. Right? There's a lot of truth to this. We don't really know what to make out of all this stuff. Right? I mean, what is this all for? Is it meaningless blah, blah, or is it just noise? But the fact is now social media is not for kids any longer. In fact, the biggest growth in social media is between 30 and 55. Those are the people currently going and signing up for all these places, not just like Twitter, but also Facebook, QQ, Mixi, wherever you live, and it's different websites, of course. And clearly, what happens here is that trust, I'm sure you're going to talk about trust at every turn in this conference, right? It's all about trust. Trust is amplified in a social setting. When I go to Facebook's classifieds, if somebody in Switzerland is selling an Audi, I want to buy an Audi, I can click on the guy's profile and check him out. Right? That's a real person who has a Facebook profile. And when I do this, I decide, hey, this person is real, they have a profile, they're active, I can buy from them. It's a whole different level of trust than in some newspaper where I have a phone number. Right? So trust amplifies social connectivity and what's called social commerce. I would propose that to be the header for your entire conference, to think about trust and social commerce. Right? That's really where we're going with this. So don't be surprised if that's where the future is going. I think the future is going, if you're talking about Facebook and social websites, towards hyper-collaboration, not hyper-competition. Look what Sony has done, Sony Electronics, with Google. Google Television allows people to essentially superimpose their browser over the TV screen and type in the name of whatever you want to watch. And Sony is putting this in place, and they used to hate Google. Now they're competing on creating the next generation television, Google TV. Check it out on the web. But I think it's going to be about new ways of collaborating with people who maybe formerly even have been enemies. Right? What's called co-opetition. Google makes a fantastic example. As much as we may hate or like or trust or not trust Google, right? I mean, the most amazing things we can learn from Google. There's a book called What Would Google Do? By Jeff Jarvis. You should read, because everything in that book can be applied to your business. Here's a little bit of an excerpt. Right? Think distributed, do what you do best, link to the rest, but most importantly, it is about elegant organization. Google takes what we do on the web and organizes it, gives it a context, gives it an interface. Right? And Craig Newmark, of course, from Craigslist, he says, get out of the way. Just get out of the way and make it happen. Right? Now that's a true thought for the future. Right? How can we get out of the way and still make money? It sounds like we should never make any money when we get out of the way. Right? Old media companies were the opposite. They get in the way and make money. Right? They make something work. So Amazon, for example, very interesting point here. If you go to Amazon, as a couple of weeks ago, all of a sudden Amazon launches a feature that says, tap into your friends. Allows me to connect my Amazon account with Facebook. And all of a sudden, I can see what my friends like. There's too many. I have used it, but it's kind of diffused because I have so many people there. But I can learn stuff from my friends on Facebook, on Amazon. So if your website does not have a button that says log in with Facebook, it should. Log in with Twitter, that takes about 30 minutes for your programmer to put in place. Right? What's called the social login. Forrester Research has done a lot of great work on this. They say we're entering the era of social context and then the era of social commerce. What in the world is social commerce? It sounds like you're going to sell something when you have dinner. What does it mean? I think social commerce is a key word for us to look at. For example, looking at this Groupon. You guys know Groupon, I'm sure. You know Groupon? Okay, it's group buying. You get together and you say, I live in London, I'm looking for a museum. And when there's 100 people or 1,000 people signed up, a coupon is generated giving you 80% off the admission or whatever it is, right? It's group buying. This company has absolutely exploded in the last couple of months, right? Group buying, social buying is exploding. It's definitely something to look at. Delta Airlines is selling tickets on Facebook. You don't have to leave Facebook to buy a ticket for Delta Airlines. So go fish where the fish are, as they say in America, right? You fish there because That's where people are. And of course, if we're looking at shopping innovations by 2015, I don't even know where I got this slide. I found it on the web, but I figured I'd show with you anyway. But then look at the innovation. Social networking shopping, collaborative product development, group buying, sales information on mobile phones, interactive dressing rooms, and so on and so on. That's all stuff that's going to impact your business that you should look at. I think the bottom line for this stuff is put more social into business, into classifieds. And that part isn't easy because when you connect with people, you can't entirely control what they will do. It's like inviting people to a dinner party and saying, we're only going to talk about Vienna. That wouldn't be a very good party. You have to allow people to have free conversations. Coming to this example, when the BP crisis happened in the Gulf, BP did not have a mechanism to talk to people within 24 hours. These guys put up a website, BP Global PR, and it's not from BP. It's people who hate BP. Right? And they have 187,000 followers in 24 hours, talking about how bad BP is. Right? Basically, connected users are now dramatically different. They have power. You have to empower them. That is the only choice you have going forward. So all of a sudden, basically matchmaking, whether it's for dates or for business, whether it's LinkedIn or Zing or Match.com or classifieds, matchmaking has changed forever. It will take a lot of creativity to use this in the future. A lot of new creativity to come up with new ways of matchmaking. Now, here's a guy much smarter than I am. You may have heard about Marshall McLuhan, the original media futurist, you could say. Very smart guy. He said this November 14th, 1971. He says about people, and he just says he, so I apologize for the women here, but of course he also means she. I guess it wasn't really hip in the 70s to think both. But he says he wants an interface, the consumer, a resident dialogue, a change in dialogue. He wants participation. That was 1971. All right, let's see what he says in person.
The global village is a world in which you don't necessarily have harmony. You have extreme concern with everybody else's business and much involvement in everybody else's life. It's a sort of Ann Landers column writ large. And it doesn't necessarily mean harmony and peace and quiet, but it does mean huge involvement.
Not necessarily harmony, peace, and quiet. I mean, that's exactly what we have today, right? I mean, the internet has created a chaos, a bunch of noise, right? A huge amount of involvement. But you have to ask yourself in the end, how can you interact with people and not have a bunch of noise? That's just part of the process. It's about the filter. You have to have good filters. Right? Part of communication is the noise. When you go to a bar, your conversations will be 95% noise, maybe 100%. Right? But the 5% that may be good, that's why you're going. Right? So you have to have a filter. That's what's the crucial part about this. This is a guy with a Wii. Who has a Wii here? The PlayStation thing, the game? Okay, yeah. Absolutely amazing. When the Wii was invented, a lot of people said, nobody is going to get up and play a video game walking around. That's just not going to happen. People sit on the couch. Right? And everybody said it will die. Within 2 years, the Wii was the highest selling platform for gaming ever until last year. Right? It was a huge behavior change. Right? So if you can anticipate technology, human behavior, culture, and business, they all go together. Your job is to figure out what your clients will do next year, not just next week. You have to preclude what people do. This is why Skype is so good. This is why Amazon is so good. This is why Apple is so good. I mean, Steve Jobs thinks about what we're going to do in 10 years rather than 10 months. Right? That's why he's such a genius. This is Fiat in Brazil. What Fiat has done is said, okay, we know what people want. They want to have a say about what we do. So Fiat in Brazil, when they launched the new Fiat 500, they allowed people to build the Fiat 500 in a way that they want it built. They asked consumers to come and say what color, what kind of leather should it have, what kind of engine, and people in Brazil got to build their own Fiat 500. They got people involved, and this was the highest selling car in Brazil for the last 5 years. And it wasn't really that different from the original car, from the Fiat 500, but people got involved. How can you involve people? Research from paidcontent.org saying that 24% of Americans have posted reviews online, reviews of things. And that number is actually much higher if you're going a little bit larger in the audience in terms of age. You've seen this on websites, right? Thumbs up, like, don't like. The most powerful mechanism for buying is not advertising. Advertising is important, but the most powerful mechanism is other people's opinion, people that I know. Word of mouth and word of mouse. Right? That's what we need. We need other people to say, go here, take a look. I mean, there isn't a single day that goes by without getting a link from some video, from YouTube, right? Somebody is emailing you a link saying, you have to watch this. That's this mechanism. That's what we need to be successful. So now, if you're looking at what's called the Generation Y, kids between 15 and 25, maybe 30, this is what they do. They're broadcasters. I call them ambient broadcasters. They're always sending out something, whether it's a photo or a comment or a thumbs up or a feed or a tweet or whatever they do, they communicate their broadcast. These are the people that you need for your business because they amplify your business quickly. If you're looking at these numbers, these are American numbers for the increase in online TV watching. Basically, Americans are now going, 2011, about 72%, 72 million Americans are supposed to be watching television online, not on cable. So what do they do there? Of course, they're not watching the mainstream shows, they're watching all kinds of shows, millions of different shows. So we're looking at basically fragmentation. I'm sure you're aware of this in your markets. It's fragmenting like this. I mean, we're going from this idea of saying, okay, we've got 3 websites or 3 channels, we've got 5, and all of a sudden we've got 200 options. So basically, commerce is atomizing. Commerce is fragmenting. And as much as we may not like this because we want to have a mass medium, that's not our future. Our future is a mass of niches. If you can be successful in a niche, that's probably a lot easier, a lot more affordable than being a mass medium. This kind of shows it very nicely. Going from prohibitive, from yesterday mass, medium, and expensive, to today collaborative and niche. Something that's built by the consumer. So the future really is about masses of niches. Like we can see here, you can buy flowers, classified market just for flowers in Holland. Some of you may know that from this. So what we can expect, if you read this book by Seth Godin called Tribes, if you haven't read it, you should. Right? We're looking at the tribalization of culture and business. I mean, you can already tell, of course, everybody has their little tribes, whether it's on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Zing, or Orkut, or some blog. I mean, we're all gathered in little tribes. And in fact, of course, your organization is a tribe. Right? ICMA is a tribe. Right? And that's why it's successful, because in this tribe, you can generate stuff together. Right? That's the power of the internet, that we can do this. Right? That's the tribe of Craigslist. Right? That's a tribe, certain kind of people. So the tribalization of society is something we have to keep in mind, and goes right along with this slide. The most important part, right? You can own your website. You can buy advertising. But the thing that really moves the needle is what's called earned media. Right? Is people talking about you. People recommending you, people downloading your app and forwarding it to others. People adding a star to your rating, whatever it is, that's called earned media. And of course, you can't just earn it without owning or buying it, obviously. You have to have all. But the question for you really is, in terms of budget, how can you earn more people talking about you? You have to give them something. You give people something to get something, and what you give them is control. The most powerful latest developments in terms of what's happening on the web, the Huffington Post in America has 40 employees, has more traffic than CNN. Why? Because they give people control over what happens there, at their location. Best Buy in America, it's a company that sells electronics. They use a project called the 12 Force, which uses Twitter to provide customer service. Of course, in America, Twitter is big, may not be so big here in Austria and other places, but still, they use this mechanism. They have 27 people doing customer service live on Twitter all day long, all night long. The most successful part of what they do has been Twitter. Having live communications about what people do. I think business is becoming social. I think this is a huge shift in terms of how we will do business. I got this email from Swissair. I live in Switzerland. I've been traveling Swissair for the last, 100 years. So I received this email from Swiss saying, please follow us. Right? Saying, we have Facebook and Twitter and we have our blog. This is about 10 years after they should have done this. Right? I mean, how long have we been blogging? At least 10 years. Right? But if you don't ask, you don't get. So if you run a website, set up the ways that people can follow you. I mean, it's all about following, about becoming a fan. If you haven't asked your users to follow you, you should. All of a sudden, Swiss is able to communicate with me on a broader basis, rather than just via email. And as a result, in general, we're seeing, of course, that the traffic on Facebook is beating Google. Not in terms of search, but in terms of time spent. As I was saying earlier, 10.6 billion minutes a day. Facebook is, in fact, the biggest broadcaster in the world, the biggest TV station. What Facebook is broadcasting is us to each other. We are the program of Facebook. Right? But just give it a year or two, Facebook will have movies, films, their own currency, Facebook money. Clearly, Facebook is already the biggest broadcaster in the world. So if you're not using Facebook, that's definitely something that you should look into. Eric Schmidt, the CEO of Google, says last year at the World Mobile Forum in Barcelona, mobile first. You should make this your official mantra of your company. It's not about the internet. It's not about apps. It's not about iPhones. It's about mobile. Mobile devices, mobile commerce. Especially if you come from so-called developing countries, from countries that are not as rich as Germany or Austria or the US. Right? But basically developing countries, developing nations, new economies, it's all about mobile. And the mobile is now the next radio, the next TV, the wallet, the bank. Right? So clearly, I think classifieds and mobile is a marriage made in heaven. I predict that most of your business will come from mobile in the future. Because mobile allows billing, it allows location-sensitive services, it allows all kinds of opt-ins. Right? It's not so easy right now because there's so many different platforms, right? But clearly, that's the way forward. I mean, if you're looking at the numbers, it's astounding. 4.2 billion cell phones, and about 80% of those will be connected to the internet in the next 2 to 3 years. Right? That's much better than any computer you can ever look at. And the same will happen on television. Every single television will connect to the internet in the next few years. If you go to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas every year, you can clearly tell last year already every single TV they showed was connected to the internet. So clearly complete convergence. Imagine if this happens on your TV screen, you can see the icons you use every day, Flickr, or eBay classifieds, or whatever you use, or whatever you're using in different countries. At the bottom of the screen, you can just click on it and check up on stuff. Right? eBay went live in Miami on television, and their revenues increased by 600%. You could actually buy stuff on eBay using a television. So that's your future as well. Television will meet, of course, mobile using various mechanisms like this. So this is a mock-up of a new Finnair airplane. Carries about, 50,000 people, I guess. But in any case, I want to encourage you to think large, much larger. As the CEO of Google has said, the best way to get out of this, which is disruption, is to invent a new product. So think about this. How can you redefine your business? Not put a Band-Aid on it. Not just say, well, I have a marginal improvement. How can you be ready for the next 2 to 3 years? How can you make money when everything is free? I mean, I get these questions about 50 times a day, right? This is, of course, a very serious question. On the web, it seems like everything is becoming free. You know, Google makes free email, free streaming, free downloading. It's not legal, but people do it. Right? Free books. Right? You can do all kinds of things on the web that used to cost money. It's amazing what happens there. So how do you do this? And there's a very smart guy named Kevin Kelly from Wired Magazine. He provided an answer about 10 years ago. And he says what we need is the new generatives. If stuff becomes free, the key is to offer valuable intangibles, valuable extras that cannot be had at zero cost. The key is to offer added values that are so powerful that you will never leave. In Denmark, the state telecom called TDC started a music service where they said, okay, if you sign up with us on the mobile or DSL, the music is free. So they licensed all the music, and every user in Denmark that signed up for TDC gets free music unlimited. Has nothing to do with the DSL, but the added value meant not a single person is leaving them. Not because the internet connection is so great, because the added values. What other added values? I mean, Amazon adds huge amount of value to my life, even though I may not be buying any books. Just because of the recommendations and the features and what they use. So that is the key question. The question should not be, how can you get money out of the users and force them to pay? The question needs to be, how much added value can you provide so they will never leave you and love you to death? That is the key question. Authenticity, interpretation, personalization, immediacy, embodiment, findability. When you download the PDF, you can sink your teeth a bit more into it. Kevin has a blog called The Technium, T-E-C-N-I-U-M, that you can read all about this stuff very much along the lines of your business. So this is our daily life, right? It's getting more complicated and more busy pretty much any second. More messages, more services, more internet, more craziness. Right? The future is really a permanent beta. This is the Google mantra, of course. Right? The future is not stable. The future is not going to get more stable. The future is not going to slow down. The future is a permanent beta. It's a very un-German thing to say, but it's speed over perfection. You have to be faster and less perfect. That is the mission for the future. Right? It's not to wait until you figured out every last little piece. Google has 1,250 alpha products. 360 products on the market, out of which about 200 are betas. Unfinished. Do more beta. Take the Google key, basically say, okay, if we do a beta, it has to be very cheap and very fast and very viral. It can't be expensive and slow. So that's a mechanism to sort of say to the future, okay, we need this. We need a lot more of this. That's how all the good companies innovate. Faster, quick, right? Much more at a beta level. I'm coming to the end of this. So one thing that's for sure in the future, when I look at my kids, when they get to be a bit older, they're about 15 and 20 now, they have zero tolerance for irrelevance. If you're not relevant, they will completely ignore you and kill your business. This is what happens in every single business, whether you're in banking, insurance, music, or classifieds or marketing. If you're irrelevant, you get killed because they have all this stuff. They have friends and followers. They have taste neighbors. They have friends of friends. They have influencers. If you're not relevant, you're toast. So figure out how to be relevant. As this tweet says, the trick for online advertising is to replace junk information with relevant content. Relevance. It's not hard to be relevant, right? It's not hard. You just have to focus on it and add values to it. So a quick summary and some action items. First of all, you know this scene from The Matrix, right? What happened there is a very simple thing. Again, going back to Jeff Jarvis, the opportunity is to provide elegant organization and context and values to people that are already doing what they want to do, which is to buy and sell, just to do it better. Right? To provide elegant organization, that's elegant organization is, right, this. Oops, sorry. It's Apple, right? That's what they do. They provide elegant organization. That's why I'm buying the iPad. The iPad isn't a good computer. It's expensive. It's closed. It doesn't do much, but it's elegant. So I'm a Mac follower. Right? That's the only reason I do this. Added values, I don't know, but it's elegant. Right? Not in terms of design, but in terms of how it works. Right? So some people, quite a few people, are in fact buying stuff that costs 2 or 3 times as much just because it has added values and elegant organization. People aren't going to buy from you because you're the cheapest. Right? You can forget that. That brings you down to the price point of 0. They will buy from you because you're the most elegant, you have the best organization, you have the best added values. The other thing is real time. Right? You've got to go real time, mobile, social, now. Real time means you don't want information from last week. You want the stuff update by the minute. And that can be done today using APIs. Right? Lots of you guys are already getting into this. Very important. The next thing is bet on the power of the human link. If somebody is selling something, I want to find out who that person is. Click on the link, see his Facebook profile or whatever they've got. It's the human link. Right? It's the meaningful link, the relevant link that I need to look at. Look into group buying. Group buying is a phenomenon that's going to absolutely explode. Right? Organize groups around buying processes, like Groupon or like Guild. And this is a graph showing why people like companies on Facebook. Why do they? They receive discounts and promotions. They want to show support. They get a freebie. They stay informed. They get updates. They get something. So a simple mantra is to say, give something to get something. That's not new, right? But on the internet, it's taken on the mobile commerce to the very extreme. You have to give something to get something. I mean, Skype, you guys know, sure, I'm using Skype, all of you, right? What does Skype give us? Well, free phone calls, right? What did we give Skype? Well, we bought last year $550 million worth of stuff from Skype. That was optional. You know, headsets, minutes, phone numbers, whatever, calling plans, whatever. Right? That's how this works. Give something to get something. Clearly, what the future will also bring the next 2 or 3 years is alternative currencies, new kinds of money. We used to joke 3 years ago saying, well, how can I pay my landlord with Facebook credits? And can you pay for your office with Facebook credits? In a year, you can. You can use Facebook money to pay for real-life things. It's already in place in different countries that other companies have created new currencies, local currencies, that can be exchanged for money. So as a Facebook user, if I upload lots of videos, if I do a lot of rating, if I'm a good citizen, so to speak, I can earn points that the sponsors and advertisers have given. And those points can be turned to buy an airline ticket, also on Facebook. It's not all about real money, right? If you're looking at, you guys may know your way around Facebook. Anybody here on Farmville? You know Farmville? Yeah? I hope you don't know Farmville. It's a terrible, addictive game on Facebook, right? You can buy virtual tractors and mow your lawn and put virtual carrots, you know. So if you're very lonely, you should play Farmville. But last year, $360 million was spent on Farmville, on a game that only exists on Facebook. Right? Real money spent there. $6 billion last year spent on virtual commerce, selling flowers to the internet, virtual flowers, not real flowers. Right? So look at alternative currencies. That's the future. We discussed this earlier. You have to have fans before you can sell. I know many of us hate the idea of this, right? Because it means to have a fan, we have to talk to them. Right? We have to actually communicate. Right? But I tell you what, today, if you don't have fans, you'll never sell anything. And that's going to get even more extreme in the near future. You have to have fans and followers before you can sell. That's clearly a process. Make fans, not just users. My last slide is, and I'm sure that's why you're here, so you don't really need this, but I'll tell you anyway. Don't stick the head in the sand. as George Bernard Shaw says, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. Okay. Be unreasonable. Think stuff that really other people think is not possible. That's how you get to success. Thanks very much. I have an iPhone app if you want to download it, or it also works on Android, called Media Futurist. And here again is my contact details.